Well, hi everyone. Welcome back to Transform Chats. Man, I am so pumped for today's conversation. We have your lovely adult leaders who have decided to kind of step into the ring and talk about a topic that I think most high school students and eventually middle school students are going to be super interested about. And that's calling. What am I supposed to do with the rest of my life? And I think as you get older, these are questions that you kind of ask constantly. And I'm only 23 and I think I still ask these questions. God, where are you calling me? What do you want me to do? But I am so thankful for these adult leaders who have taken the time to talk to us. I think the best way to go about this, leaders, is if you say your name, what grade you lead, and then maybe what your current occupation is.
Sure. I am Rachel, and I'm the 7th grade girls leader at Thrive. Hooty hoo! And my job is I work in admissions at Quinnipiac University for their online programs.
Awesome.
Great. I'll go next. I'm Jen Tresh, and I work with the sophomore girls, Fusion. And I have a hard time describing my job because it's kind of, it may sound kind of boring, but basically I work for a company that's clean energy, and I run a project management office of teams of about 60 people, and we support an organization to build the equipment that gives power to your house.
Cool.
Interesting. So I'll go next. I'm Rick Purdy. I help out with the 7th grade boys in Thrive. And I am a physical therapist in New Haven in an outpatient orthopedic clinic.
I guess I'll go. I'm Brad. I cover my freshman Fusion boys. Shout out. When I'm, out making some money, I'm a photographer and a musician.
Awesome.
I'm Dan. I'm with the senior boys for the 2nd year in a row. So I guess I'm kind of a super senior.
I guess so.
But I work at Sikorsky, and I work in the test department, kind of validating the things that are designed, making sure that they're safe.
Awesome. Well, our first question for today is, how would you define the word calling?
Oh. Yeah. The way that I would define the word calling, you kind of can put it into itself as like something that you're called to. But I think it is wrapped around things that you have a unique gifting or attribute to yourself that provides value not only to yourself but to others. That can be your community, that can be ultimately the world. And I think it's something that kind of has your stamp with your name written on it.
Yeah, I think a lot of times we think of it as also just kind of what your purpose is, what you feel like God wants you to do. So that's what I think of when I think of calling.
Yeah, and I think purpose too I was thinking purpose as well, and it's purpose that really makes you excited and kind of makes your heart beat fast a little bit, and you really have a passion for.
Yeah, I love that.
It is, those two ideas are definitely tied. Your calling and your purpose, and depending upon how those are defined, they definitely could almost be intertwined or interchanged. But I think that regardless of what we're doing, whether it be, we just kind of went through our work, right? So what we're doing every day, I think there's a higher level or a piece further back from that of, all right, we all as Christians, our calling or our purpose is to live a life that is growing to look more like Christ. So that comes out in a lot of ways, both in our vocation, but also in what we do before we start that in the day and after we finish that and throughout that, right?
Mhm.
Love that.
Yeah, that's a really good thing, Dana. It matches both your professional and your spiritual in one. Your calling is sometimes what you do for work, but it's also how you manifest Jesus in your life while you're working.
Yeah, I love that. Do you guys, I feel like a lot of people think that calling is like you have this big moment, right? Where it's like God is like, this is what you're supposed to do for the rest of your life. Do you feel like that's the case for you? Or do you feel like as you've gotten older, that's changed? Or maybe just situations have kind of made your calling change? And if you can speak directly to that in your own life experience, that'd be awesome.
Mhm. Yeah, I would say that I think when I was younger in high school, I was waiting for the aha, and I, kept waiting and waiting through my 20s and my 30s and 40s for what am I going to do when I grow up? And I just kind of realized that it's not really what I'm going to do when I grow up. It's what I do every day. And,
Yeah.
as you go along, the seeds that I sowed when I was in high school, I'm reaping the benefits of now just by being consistent, by getting my work done in time. But more than that, like getting back to your calling, I think I realized then that I was, passionate about people, and that I loved to help and I loved to encourage. And it's funny because those are spiritual gifts and also what I wound up doing like in my profession. And so just doing those things day in and day out from the time I was in high school up till now, it didn't matter what I did to earn money so much because I've changed careers along the way. But it's, those things are what I wind up manifesting in my job and making good at what I'm doing. So practicing what your passions are and what you're naturally good at helps you discover your calling, which can change over time.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I was gonna say, to piggyback off of you, that that calling can definitely kind of shift and mold as you kind of have some progression, but also kind of the funny twist on it is it doesn't necessarily mean that your calling, the thing that you're called to, will come easy to you, as far as what exactly it is. Like I know for myself, like when I think of like the music that I do, some of that pretty much you could call it public speaking. And when I tell you I was the last person that wanted to be on a stage, forget even in front of 10 people, talking about anything, talking about, the color of my socks. But just as I really just began to just dive into the heart of God and then just, begin to discover, what this thing was, there wasn't like a poof, aha, this is what it is. It was like, okay, God, I'm taking, day by day, step by step with you. And, just like the way that I see it is like looking in Jesus's eyes is like looking into a mirror. And that when I look into him, I begin to see how he sees me, and just that discovery over time.
That's really good.
So it definitely wasn't like, all right, I got this, I'm going to do this. It was like, all right, Lord, I think this is what it is, but I need you to baby step me because I'm scared.
Yeah, I feel that big time.
Totally. And talking about step by step, I think a lot of it is just, these small yeses that you'll eventually look back on and realize how far you've come. Like for me, it's funny, I've been doing youth ministry for 13 years. And probably 15 years ago, my friend asked me if I wanted to help coach a middle school softball team with her. And I said yes to that. Now, 2 years prior to that, my friend, who was the director of Black Rock's middle school ministry, always asked me, can you help out with middle school ministry? which was called Club JV. Can you help out? Can you help out? Maria Furlow, shout out. And I was like, no, I don't know about middle schoolers. I don't know about middle schoolers. And then I ended up saying yes to this softball team. And I was like, middle schoolers aren't so bad. I kind of like them. And boom, here I am 13 years later, been working with middle schoolers and high schoolers for a while. And then even relating that to faith, I just think you keep saying yes to God and you just keep doing these small steps, you're going to go so far and realize how far you've come. There's really not that aha moment. There wasn't for me. It's just these small steps, like you're saying, Brett.
There has not been, and I don't know, I don't think there will be this is what I'm going to do for my calling or for life. It's not, haven't seen that yet. In high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And in the college process, I applied to 3.5 schools. One of them I never finished the application to, and 2 of them I didn't want to go there. So it kind of, that's not what I would recommend, but God worked with me kind of where I was in that, and landed me in a spot where I was able to painfully learn skills with the gifts and the talents that He gave me. So I definitely see that as, all right, take your skill set or your bent, whatever your interests are, and kind of use that for the Lord, like Jen was saying. And that comes out in many different ways throughout different seasons of time. And I turned down like 2, maybe 3 different opportunities that could have led to working in ministry full-time. And while those would have been awesome opportunities, I am super happy to be where I am now, because I'm in a workplace that does allow me great flexibility to be able to be a part of Fusion and a part of Sanctuary, part of BlackRock, right? Serve there and be a part of that. But also, I'm with a whole group of other people who don't know the Lord, and we have that opportunity. We're amongst them more than anyone else in our life, just the amount of time you spend at work. So that's another great ministry field.
Yeah. Do you feel like at any point in your life, I know Jen kind of talked about struggling with it when she was in high school, 20s, 30s, 40s. Do you think there was ever a point where you really struggled with, like, God, I kind of what Dan's saying, I didn't know what I was supposed to do, but really struggling with that, like, God, I just really want to know. I feel like everybody around me has a direct path of where they're going. I know I talk to high school students all the time who kind of talk about their friends and say, well, I know that this friend is going here and they're going to do this, and this friend is going here and they're going to do this. I have no clue where I'm going. I have no clue what I want to do. Do you feel like maybe that is part of your story?
Yes.
Yeah, I think mine is maybe, I think, knowing I wanted to go into physical therapy, I think most people would think, yeah, Rick, you had that idea of that's just the direction you want to go. You must have had an aha moment. That was your calling. I remember after graduating PT school, I ended up joining a really reputable firm in New Haven. And then I started feeling like God wanted me to do ministry. So I'm like, wait a minute, I have this path, which is the trajectory everybody says they want. I'm going to get a career. I'm just going to do this till I die. Maybe that's it. And I felt like God was saying, I want you involved in ministry. So I had no idea what that meant. I was getting nervous. I said, you know what, I better go to seminary. I started going to seminary part-time. I thought maybe God wanted me to be a pastor, a youth person. Wow. And I was thinking, I don't want to just leave this full-time career for something that I have, no idea what God wants. But I thought, well, is that just, a lack of faith or some doubts? But I kept seeing God was blessing me in my work. And I was thinking, okay, well, I get ready for the time when maybe things don't go well. And maybe this is a sign. Now it's time to get out and God's going to use me. And work kept going really, really well. And then in the church I was going to at the time, they needed someone to help with youth ministry. And I was like, oh, I guess I can do this. I don't have to leave my job. And originally it was confusing because I thought, well, if I'm going to be in ministry, God probably wants me to do it full time. And then I realized, well, God's blessing me in my job. I'm having opportunities, to share with people I'm working with. I am working, like Dan was saying, with a lot of unbelievers, and I have an opportunity to be a light to them there. And, with us moving to Monroe and then starting to attend Blackrock, and helping out with the middle school ministry, it's like, wow, I have the ability to do these things and help out in ministry. And it doesn't have to be my full-time vocation.
That's awesome, Rick. I really love that. And glad that you're helping out with those 7th grade boys, because oof.
Yeah, I'd say I still sort of struggle, but definitely struggled. And, how do you figure it out? And so, I sort of have like 2 paths ahead of me right now. So I'm like, Lord, I don't know which one to take. And sometimes there's no path ahead of me. It's like, Lord, where are you? And I just, would encourage you to a couple things. One is relax in the Lord, because if you commit your ways to Him, He will direct them. He will direct them. And sometimes I think everybody here probably would say that sometimes it's been really weird how God's led them to where they are right now. You wind up, going down one path, and then all of a sudden you find yourself on another. And that's part of the excitement of life. But I call it just, get moving. Don't get paralyzed. Get moving. And start jiggling the door handles and see which one opens. And that's just kind of how I practice it in my life. There's times when I thought, oh, I can't do that. I'm not equipped. And Laura's just like said, just trust me. Just jiggle the door handle. If it opens up, then take the next step. So that's how I've been. And I just, especially, for the high school students, thinking about college, everybody thinks that they know what they're going to do. They don't know what they're going to do, and they don't wind up doing it anyway. So
yeah, exactly.
Pressure off of yourself. God's got you. God's got you.
Yeah.
To piggyback off what you just said, I think is a really good point, is that I think sometimes we overstress ourselves because we think other people have it figured out when they're still figuring it out at the same time. And I think if we kind of took a breather and looked around and really recognized, like, wow, like I'm not the only one trying to figure this thing out, would give us more encouragement to actually figure it out together. I know for myself, just even as being like an artist, I always like share the funny story when I was a freshman and I started making like hip hop songs. The year before that, I just wrote poems, and one of my friends stole my notebook and was like, "Oh, dude, you can rap." And I was like, first of all, I didn't ask you anything about that. And, like, long story short, I ended up, doing music, but I didn't even recognize a gift that I had for music. And then it just began to develop. But funny thing, even into like me believing that, right now that, God is calling me for music and things of that nature. How photography came into play was I was like, I need a music video done, and I didn't know anybody. So I was like, I'm going to buy my own camera. And I didn't even know how to put the lens on the camera. Like I almost broke it leaving the store. But I was just passionate about figuring out the video so much that I figured out how to take pictures. Mm-hmm. And then 6 months later, I did my first wedding, and then had a bunch of weddings, and everyone's asking me for pictures. And then I was like, oh my God, this is a job. So now, like, this is what I do to support myself, while I'm also doing what I feel God is calling me to do. So I think that when you're, again, what everyone else has said, when you're pursuing what you feel God is saying yes to, that, He'll open up other doors to provide for you financially.
Mm. Yeah, I think pursuing what you're sensing God is leading you towards is important, right? Because you are moving, as Jen was saying, like you're testing different things out, and as you all three have just said, you're not going to know. And I think people will say, oh, I'm doing this because it's comfortable, right? And then they feel like they're in control, or the sense of unknown is not there. You know, a lot of people are scared or anxious now because there's unknown in the world that's beyond our control. And so a way to get beyond that is to say that you know what you're going to do. So that's why we're trying to grasp on, oh, this is what my calling is. Focus on what is now, and the piece, you know, yes, it's good to dream. Don't stop what could be in the future and what you're sensing God's leading you to in the long term and whatever. But that doesn't mean to like stand there and not do nothing now.
Right.
Keep being active now and pursue whatever it is. Maybe it's humble beginnings at one point. Maybe it's just doing something because you need to be making money and supporting yourself or supporting family, or you don't know exactly what you're going to do. So, all right, test some different stuff out, and that's a great way to learn more what your skills are. I think anytime you have internships or being able to shadow, or going to ask your leaders what they do and trying to understand, those are all critical things, different things that people ahead of me in life have helped me know what I should be doing in different seasons through those. So definitely come ask us, seek out those opportunities throughout your schooling.
Yeah, and just one quick thing, thinking about struggling, I think I did struggle with that. And then I heard a sermon about how God really cares more about who you are than what you're doing and what your job is. Not that he doesn't care about it, but he deeply cares about who you are. So that kind of freed me of a lot of just pressure, because my focus was just like on God and growing my relationship with him, and seeing who he's put in front of me to minister to. So just really getting freed from what am I going to do by focusing on who I am.
Right. Yeah. I love that. Well, guys, we are running out of time. And I just, thinking about everything that you guys are saying, it really made me think of Romans 12, when it kind of, the first verse talks about offering your body as a living sacrifice. That's our true and proper worship. And that means giving all of ourselves to Jesus. And that means kind of those desires of like, God, this is what I'm interested in, but you do with it what you want. And then I even think kind of a little bit more of what you guys are talking about, that I think we put so much pressure on ourselves of, God, I don't know what I'm supposed to do, and I don't know what's next, and what am I can do X, Y, and Z. But reading again in Romans 12:6, it says, we have different gifts according to the grace given to each of us. If your gift is prophesying, then prophesy in accordance with your faith. If it's serving, then serve. If it's teaching, teach. And if it's to encourage, then give encouragement. And I think we overcomplicate so often kind of what's before us, because we're constantly, I think, looking at what's around us and saying, well, my life should be like this, my life should be like this, when in reality, we should just be using what God has given us to continue walking forward. Well, thank you guys so much. I appreciate you guys stepping in and doing this for our students. I know that they will appreciate it as well. So yeah, students, tune in next week. I am not sure what we're talking about, but we will find out. So I love you guys. Thank you so much for joining us. And I will see you next week. Maybe some of these leaders will see you next week as well. Bye guys. Have a great day.
Bye.